The Cawthron Institute and New Zealand Food Safety have been collaborating with Crown Research Institute, ESR, on establishing the methyl mercury levels in certain finfish species. This proactive research will protect market access for our fishing sector. By developing techniques to quickly and accurately measure the level of methyl mercury, consumers can be confident that the seafood they eat is safe.
So mercury is naturally found in the Earth's crust and finds its way into the environment through a number of ways. Some of them natural, like volcanic activity and weathering of rocks, but also through some human processes, through burning coal, some industrial processes, extraction of gold, etc. Cawthron's worked in closely with ESR around the development of a method for methyl mercury. So ESR has received the whole fish and processed those for analysis. So they've performed some analysis within their laboratories and then sent a sub-fraction of the fish to Cawthron for the analysis of methyl mercury. So when it arrives at Cawthron, we are able to extract the methyl mercury and then put it through one of our instruments known as an ICP-MS, which allows us to measure accurately the amount of methyl mercury that's in the sample.
The World Health Organization has made a risk assessment that says eating fish is a great health benefit as part of a balanced diet. However, there are a few fish species where the actual levels of methyl mercury can be higher, and that can actually lead to certain health risks if they're consumed too much, and that might, particularly for the developing fetus. So what we do as New Zealand Food Safety have in place advice for fish species for pregnant women to kind of let them know which ones they can eat frequently and which ones they want to maybe limit in terms of maybe once a week or once a fortnight. And this work, the research, the methyl mercury program, we've undertaken that to start to build up a better database for some of these fish species, so we can actually look at that advice and see whether it's fit for purpose, it's being protective, but it's also being flexible so people can get the right amount of fish in their diet if they need it. And on top of that, New Zealand's also leading some international work for setting standards for methyl mercury in fish in global trade. And this information, generating some New Zealand data, actually really supports that work and makes sure that exports will be accepted and there's a robust evidence-based process for that. We've had fantastic collaboration in getting it underway and running it. And that starts off with the seafood industry, Seafood New Zealand, who've been really supportive of the project. And then going through to actually on the fishing vessels, so the vessel captains and our MPI's fishery observers have worked fantastically together to get us the fish samples as they're caught and record all the properties of them. And then once we've had the samples in, we've had two laboratories, so the Institute of Environmental Scientific Research, ESR, and Cawthron, who've worked together to do all the testing for us for the program. A lot of people would know about methyl mercury, and particularly with those big predatory fish like sharks or swordfish or marlin. The two species we're looking at, orange roughy and ling, they don't have quite those levels. They're not top of the food chain and really building it up, but they do have some methyl mercury around in the parts per million type levels. Now, the traits of these two species mean they can build up a little bit more methyl mercury than other fish species you might find on the supermarket shelf. And this includes they can live for quite a long time. So orange roughy could live for over 100 years. They live towards the bottom of the ocean. And I mean, for ling, they can get quite big as well, so they build up a lot of mercury. Both orange roughy and ling are also species we export. So most of the global trade in these two species actually comes from New Zealand. So it's important to get this data to actually support what we're sending overseas as well. So through the program, we're about 2/3 of the way through. What we're looking to achieve is firstly to get a good idea of the methyl mercury in these fish, what the ranges are and how it might differ depending how big or small the fish are. What we're going to do from that is we're going to do a assessment based on the omega-3 fatty acids to actually look at what the health benefits of eating these fish are and try and identify when the methyl mercury levels might be too much of a risk and outweigh that benefit. And from that, we hope to revise our advice or update it just to make sure that it's being protective for consumers, but they're also getting that flexibility on actually eating seafood. The information from the project, it's going to be used broadly. So firstly, New Zealand Food Safety will be using it to look at our advice we currently have around fish consumption and make sure it's fit for purpose. It'll also be loaded up into an international database, so it's going to feed into international work looking at trading standards for fish. And finally, with the collaboration of the seafood industry, we'll be passing that information on as well, so it's available for the seafood exporters to understand what the mercury profiles are in those fish.
Total mercury is normally measured as the measurement of mercury within a fish sample. So what Cawthron's developed is a method that's able to speciate the mercury that's present in the sample. So we're able to measure methyl mercury in particular. So we've developed an extraction protocol for fish, and then using some of our sophisticated instrumentation to be able to measure specifically methyl mercury. This is a new methodology that's been developed at Cawthron. So we've based our method on some accepted methods for methyl mercury that are based out of Europe, and we've adapted the extraction protocol specifically for the species of fish that we're looking into. And then we've used our instrumentation that is specifically able to measure methyl mercury. So the results from that will be used in an international context. Beyond the scope of this project, we'll then be able to offer methyl mercury testing to our seafood industry. So we've gone down the route where we're able to accredit this test. So we have what's known as IANZ accreditation for methyl mercury. So we'll be seeking IANZ accreditation this year for methyl mercury, and then we'll be able to offer that test to our industry should they require that testing.
Thanks, New Zealand On Air.